Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining in and taking in another podcast session here. This is Complete Sports, and we're going to have a really, really great show. I'm excited today talking about UFC past and UFC coming. And yeah, it's been a fantastic month or so that the UFC's been back in business. Obviously, everybody's dying for sports, and for a guy like me with love of sports, never went this long without watching live events, seeing live events, and it's been really tough on me, and I'm sure a lot of you too. But credit to the UFC and Dana White and everybody involved in putting on these events. It's been really, really a big undertaking and a huge task to try to get venues and try to make sure it's safe for everybody. And the U.S. has just been hammered with this pandemic. It's just been horrible for, much of the world, obviously, but the U.S. especially. And, amazing that they were able to go to Florida, put on events, then Vegas just this past weekend. I even watched some boxing there last night from Vegas, which was really great. Hey, I'm really, really impressed with the UFC, and it's been so fun to have some events that we can talk about, that we can hash over, and we've got a really amazing guest today that we get to talk some UFC with, a guy that I definitely always rehash some of the events to. We text back and forth when the events are going on, and it's always really fun to get his perspective on what he thought of the events. Stephane Cappellini is a really good fighter. He's a striker. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's very familiar with the game. He works locally with our commission to help with some of the events put on as well. So last UFC event here in Vancouver, he was in the cage with the guys and in the dressing room with a lot of the guys, and really good expert on the sport, and as a guy that can break down these fights too. So please welcome Stephane Cappellini joining me. Thanks a lot, Stephane. Great to see you.
Yeah, hey Darren. Yeah, great to see you as well. And it is awesome that the UFC is back. It's a little different seeing it without any crowds there, but hey, a lot better than not having it at all. And you know what? I don't mind not having the crowds there either. Really, I'm just focused on the fight anyway, right?
Yeah, well, I had a really good discussion with a guy yesterday, and he said he felt like the fighters actually got a little more focused when they didn't have crowd distractions. He seemed like they could hear their corners a lot better, and they were able to really change the fight if it was going in one direction that it wasn't going well for them. And it seemed like for him, it was better for the fighters. So, the only thing is, maybe they just don't feel that energy, and especially a hometown crowd for a guy. I'm enjoying it. The thing that I'm liking the most is I can actually hear the connections. I can actually, feel what they feel, maybe, in a sense. It's been amazing to actually hear the bone crunching on bone and skin. It's been pretty wild.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. That's interesting, though, that you say that these fighters are able to listen to their corners and then apply it. Or can you think of a particular fight that a fighter did or was able to do that?
Well, Henry Cejudo to me is the biggest example. Against Maurice, he was he was being dominated, I thought, and all of a sudden he just turned it around, and in that second round and on, wow, like I just saw a complete transformation, and it just a big shift. But I've noticed it a ton. I've actually been listening and hearing them say, hey, give me a 2-3, and boom, I just see it right away. I've noticed, hey, transition here. I can hear the corner yelling, and you just don't get that very easily. It's very hard, I think, for them to hear the corners when they're in there, when there's 10, 15,000 people in the stand.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I've had a few fights and it's really hard to listen to your coaches. I think, and I didn't have a lot of them, but I think when you have more and more experience, I think you learn to calm yourself down more. And when you get hyper, you get that tunnel vision. And I think also the ears turn off as well. I remember when I'd be walking into the ring and, you know, I'd be looking around at the people, and not all I'd see was but I couldn't hear them, you know, it was muffled, you know. Yes. So, but these guys are way, you know, way more experienced, way at a different level. And maybe that's all they need is be able to actually hear their trainers. Because I find, like you said, often, and you know, I've worked the UFC, and then I've worked a lot of local events, and the guys in the corners are just like screaming and yelling at their guys all the time, and it's not too often that they actually apply what they're saying, because they're involved in a fight. They're concentrating on that when they're up against the cage and their coach is right there. Right in there, if they're fighting a guy right in their corner, that's when, they're able to hear them a little bit better, and then they actually seem to apply the advice.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's challenging and difficult. You know, I know it firsthand too, and it's just it's just added a different dynamic, and you know, maybe something for you know, our viewers and listeners to you know, keep your ears and eyes out for. It's something that I've started noticing. I'm noticing a lot of tweets in the bottom corner of the screen as well. And even though I don't really want to look away from the fights, I have been noticing some tweets and things like that. And I think that's adding a neat little element to it too. I saw that Tyson was watching, and, you know, a lot of the fighters are watching and they're tweeting as the action's going on. It's pretty neat. An extra element that's been added recently too.
Yeah. And I know we're talking UFC today, but and I know Tyson's a huge fan, but they are trying to get, originally I heard, to sidestep a little bit here, they're Tyson versus Shannon Briggs. And now I hear it's Tyson versus Holyfield, which would be way bigger. Way bigger.
Yeah.
And is this a boxing fight or bare knuckle?
I hope it doesn't happen. These guys are too old. Like, come on. Like, you know, it's you know, they're 15 years out of their prime. It's just, no, I hope it doesn't happen. You know, it's good to look back on those days. You know, the Tyson Holyfield obviously was tough with it biting his ear and all that, but you know, I don't want to see old men like that fight anymore. No. They leave it to the younger guys and leave it to the guys that are in the game all the time, training every day for these fights. So it's better.
You kind of want to remember them as they were, you know. And in fact, we did talk about one fighter recently, and I think it was 249, or maybe it was a fight night, and that was Verdum, Fabrizio Verdum, that we thought just looked way older, just not fleet of foot at all, and of what he was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, so, no kidding. You know, age catches up to you in combat sports really fast, and I think it's not pretty. It's not pretty. It's a dangerous sport. It's you know, these guys are putting their lives on the line every time they step into a cage or a ring, and so, you know, and they leave it to the younger guys. It's a lot better and more entertaining, in my opinion. I want to break down 250. Obviously headlined by Amanda Nunes and Felicia Spencer. There was, you know, it was a mismatch. It wasn't a great fight per se, but, you know, it's always great to see somebody that's at the top of the game, the best female fighter to ever live. Amanda Nunes, you know, showed how, you know, above and beyond she is on the competition. Great to see a Canadian girl getting an opportunity at a belt, and you know, she's tough as nails. I can't believe she could, you know, withstand all the punishment she did, but it was a one-sided affair for sure.
It was, and I was thinking about that when I was what you're saying about how she withstood it. She made the whole 5 rounds, which was a surprise to me, because a tough as fuck chick as Cyborg gets stopped in the first round. It was a first round stoppage, wasn't it? We're going back a little bit here, you know, and then Ronda Rousey, that at the time was thought as the best female fighter ever, and that she would reign for decades, and just destroyed by Amanda Nunes as well. So to see her, I think that was the best outcome we could have expected. She did hit Nunes a couple times, at least, at the very least. But both of them, I was just reading that both of them are looking at some suspensions now.
Yeah, usually that happens. Just, there's injuries in most fights, and they get that. But yeah, no, I mean, great for Felicia. I don't think it's harming her career. I think she'll be impressing the UFC brass and the matchmakers. They'll want to put her in tough fights again. But Amanda's just a step above, and it's going to take a while for somebody to come in there and knock her off, I think. I really loved the bantamweights that were on that card, though. There was 3 bantamweight fights that were scheduled, and after Cejudo destroyed Cruz and decided to retire, all of a sudden, boom, there's an empty belt waiting to be filled, and all of a sudden, all these bantamweight fights start coming on, and wow, I was, the thing that stands out to me the most, I think, is Garbrandt, after a 3-fight losing streak and not having a victory since 2016, being able to come back and have an unbelievable knockout, a buzzer-beating walk-off KO that was just spectacular. It just blew me away how great of a KO that was.
Yeah, absolutely. And, kudos to him. I mean, a guy that just loved to fight in a telephone box before, in a telephone booth. That's what he wanted to do. He just basically just wanted to, hey, let's both drop our hands and say, fuck the defense, and just start swinging. That was his style before. And what a totally different look. I know he changed camps. I'm not sure who he was with before, but he became a much more well-rounded fighter and way more mature. And then what a knockout! What a knockout! He's blisteringly fast, so he's got that he can keep that in his in his pocket. And his jiu-jitsu game, I know he's training with Almeida, which is probably one of the best, if not the best, MMA jiu-jitsu coach out there. Yeah. And so he's it kind of like it'd be interesting if Cejudo actually decided to announce his retirement after he saw Cody fight, thinking like, maybe I should retire because this fucking guy can pop.
Wow, can he ever? Yeah, Cody was from Team Alpha Male, and he still utilized that camp a little bit, and has always, been very loyal to the guys, in that camp. But, being able to go to New Jersey, get Mark Henry on board, and Almeida, like you say, and just get a different feel. He just needed a different feel after 3 losses in a row. And, wow, the results really showed there, and it was great. I like the guy. He's definitely arrogant and cocky and has really, upset a lot of people with that. But, I'm a big fan, and that really is going to help him move up the ranks and maybe get another title shot. It was huge when he was able to take the title back in the day, and, phenomenal guy. I do want to transition into the other fights. Aljimain Sterling, ranked number 2 going into that, and, he definitely solidified his standing. What a quick submission that was, and he just looked phenomenal. I thought, wow.
Yeah, for sure. He just didn't give Sandhagen a chance. No. Sandhagen thought, and we're going to warm up into this fight, I think, Yeah. And Sterling was just all over him, And I thought Sterling, you're not going to get the choke this way. You're not. He had the choke this way, but he was rolling to the wrong side every time. And I thought, dude, your attack, your back attack is fantastic, but you're not going to get the choke this way. But he got it in so deep that last time, and and so deep that I think Sandhagen didn't even have much of a chance to tap.
No, yeah, he was already out as he was trying to. Yeah, so that was amazing. Yeah, it was super impressive. Obviously, really great to see that. And yeah, you know, the submission game is pretty deadly when you know you can get a guy quick, and you know, before he even taps, he was sleeping. So that was insane. You know, they also had a fight, and you said you saw it recently, the OMalley Wineland fight. You know, OMalley, I just didn't think that he had that kind of power. Wineland, I don't think has ever been knocked out like that, and wow, it was just super impressive. Blew me away. OMalley got ranked now, and you know, he's an up and comer.
Yeah, definitely. Malley kind of looks like more of like a Diaz style fighter that's not going to particularly hit you with a haymaker, one shot and put the guys out, but is going to hit you with a bunch of combination of shots. But you know, guys, sometimes that long muscle that may not look that powerful, and just getting the leverage right, and looks like he's getting that timing right, and good things happen.
Yeah, well, he's so lanky, but wow, what a punch, you know, that just shut Wineland out like that. And he you know, speaking of sleeping, he was sleeping really quick, and wow, it was really good. I was super impressed with him, and he's definitely something to keep an eye on. And then Cody Stamman, same bantamweight as well. You know, heavy heart, losing his brother, and you know, wow, it was pretty shocking that he you know, had to deal with that, and you know, being able to get the win. You know, lots of emotion. You know, I could even see the emotion with Joe Rogan interviewing him after, and you know, that was another really big win. And that bantamweight division is just looking so strong. I'm amazed by it.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see these. I know the smaller guys don't get a lot of interest, but I think, you know, the bantamweights, 135 guys, they've always they're exciting. Yeah. They're so bloody fast, which is great. Yeah. And they're just, I think the training as well. Their training is different. Their training. And you know, heavyweights were always exciting because at any moment, whether it's MMA or in boxing, at any moment the guy could get knocked out. You know, and then the old days of boxing, the smaller guys would maybe knock out guys or TKO guys with combinations and stuff. But now we're seeing these bantamweights knocking guys out with one punch knockouts, and so the training is different. You know, back in the old days, they never touched weights before. They didn't do any power training. You know, they thought it slowed you down, which is the absolute opposite of the truth. Yeah. And so now these smaller guys, and even the women in these, you know, these lighter divisions, like take Amanda Nunes. I mean, she's got that power as well. So it's really exciting to see these guys with that power, that knockout power.
Yeah. So they just announced UFC 251. That's going to be on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi, and that will finally crown a champion in that weight division. You know, we've got Petr Yan. He's going to be fighting Jose Aldo, and yeah, it'll be nice to see a belt around somebody's waist. Cejudo really shocked the world by retiring and you know, giving up that belt, but you know, quite quickly the UFC has been able to, you know, make a fight, and if it happens, hopefully it does, boom, you know, there'll be a champion, and then all these guys that had some, you know, really good performances are gonna, you know, be clamoring for a shot at the belt. So what do you, any thoughts of that Petr Yan Jose Aldo fight?
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with Petr Yan yet. I'll have to take a look a little bit more. Adam, perhaps you can add something there. But I don't know if Jose's got anything. I thought he lost his last fight as well. He's been on a bit of a losing streak. He did switch up his diet, went to a vegetarian diet. I think that's great, especially for the later rounds and energy. Getting that can be very helpful. But I don't know if he's going to continue that because he lost his last fight. But you're right. I think this is a vacant title, and I think we got Cody Garbrandt looking really good. But he just fought, so it's too soon perhaps for him. Even though he didn't, I don't think he got too banged up, but he probably just went through a big training camp. One thing I was going to say about Garbrandt, he looks like physically he changed. He looks thicker, not per se more defined, but he did look thicker to me as well. Maybe I should take a look at some of his older pictures. I don't know if you noticed that as well. But yes, I think this title, in my opinion, one of those guys is going to win this at the 251. But a true champion, I think a couple other guys are going to have a crack at it before I think there's a true champion at Bantamweight.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, solidify it a bit more. And Jose Aldo, I think he got robbed on his last fight. Quite frankly, I thought he won, but I think the UFC is kind of giving him the shot. Especially history, but I thought he got robbed on the cards on the last fight he had. But and I did notice Cody's different too. Yeah, I think he's got a different nutritionist, and just a whole different camp, like you mentioned earlier. So yeah, he's a different guy, and I think we all evolve. It's been 3-4 years since he had the belt. 4 or 5 years since he had the belt, and he's had to evolve and stuff. On that 251 card announced by the UFC, it's stacked. I'm really, really excited and looking forward to that. Obviously, the main event with Kamara Usman and Gilbert Burns. Burns looked phenomenal last fight. Absolutely dominated. He just crushed Tyron Woodley. Woodley's had his ups and downs, and his last 2 fights have not been impressive to me. But he just showed he's far and away above Woodley, and Usman has had a fantastic career. So I think that fight's going to be great.
Ooh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that one. Usman. Let's go to Gilbert Burns. I actually thought Gilbert Burns was going to be a little bit slow for Tyron Woodley, and not at all. He might not have that one-punch knockout power, although he did it to Damian Maia. Just a beautiful floating hook over, I think it was over Maia's right hand, over his right cross. So he does have punching power. He does have speed. And Tyron Woodley, I think he's good everywhere. I think he's a really good wrestler. He's got a good jiu-jitsu game. He is a black belt now. He did choke out, Darren Till, after he popped him with the right hand. But I think he just relies too much on that big overhand right. And I thought he actually looked pretty good for him because, and we spoke about this earlier too, Tyron Woodley is hot or cold. But a lot of his fight is based on it is if he can connect with that overhand right or not. And Burns, I don't remember him actually really hitting Burns solidly, like getting a clean overhand right on him. And Gilbert Burns fought a smart fight. He's a smart fighter, and he watched out for that. He knew this is where I could get stung by that big overhand right, because that's what's happened to I can think of Till, what's the karate guy's name, Stephen
Wonderboy Thompson
Wonderboy. Yeah, and then there was also Robbie Lawler. All of them got nailed by that big right hand, and if you can avoid that, you've got you're a really good fighter. If you're a really complete fighter like Burns, great chance. So moving on, that's going to be a really interesting one. And I found the Woodley Usman fight quite boring. So but I think this one could be a lot more exciting. So yeah, really looking forward to that.
And the third belt that's going to be up for grabs on that card is the Volkanovski Holloway rematch. Holloway had looked so dominant for so long that I really didn't think Volkanovski could beat him, but I was proved wrong, and Volkanovski looked phenomenal, I thought. I don't know if Holloway can bring something different to the table, or, you know, Volkanovski is going to be able to, you know, solidify that and take him out 2 times. You know, what are your thoughts?
I think Holloway is, I kind of feel he's in trouble. I think even with the Dustin Poirier fight, he's one tough son of a bitch, and the guy is taking a lot of punishment. He's an exciting fighter to watch because he loves to scrap. He's the kind of guy that, like, he gets hit and he says, come on, and he loves to just sit there and swing. And like you said, has he changed his game? Because I think he's gonna have to avoid that a little bit. I think he's starting to get banged up a little bit. I feel he's starting to get a little hit. One thing too, they said about after Stipe fought the Nigerian Frenchman Francis there, and then he fought DC. They were saying that Stipe fought too soon after fighting Francis there. He got some big shots and his face was still too sore. This was the DC Stipe fight 1. He wasn't ready. He hadn't fully recovered from those big punches, and we know that guy can punch. So I kind of feel it seems to me a little bit soon for Holloway, and because he's taken some beatings now.
Wow. Yeah, has he ever? Yeah, he sure has. Yeah, you know, I'm concerned for guys that have been through so many wars, and you know, it takes a toll on you. Sometimes they never are the same, and you know, he's had so many high-profile fights and some big wars, and you mentioned earlier a phone booth. A lot of these guys, you know, they get so much power and they get so much success, and they just like throwing down, and they don't, you know, they're not putting up defense as much as they should, and you know, it can wear on you and make you old quick.
Yeah, for sure. These guys, you know, especially guys like Holloway, they love to fight. And apparently that's something that's really popular on the islands there in Hawaii for young men just to fight. You see, you know, probably goes back, well, before BJ Penn, but we know BJ Penn is from the islands there and from Hawaii, and great fighter in his time. And but fighting on that island for young men is just something that's
amazing. Yeah. I'll lend you my BJ Penn autobiography book. It's an amazing read. He just fought every day of his life, you know, and his family was like, all right, you're going out fighting, great, have fun, you know. It was like you know, just like we say with go out and, you know, ride your bike or play hockey. Yeah, but these guys are just fighting every day. So yeah, it's a pretty amazing place, and you know, can really, you know, bring some champions to, you know, to the world. So it's incredible. I just want to remind you, we're listening to Complete Sports, Stephane Cappellini, and you know, it's been a pleasure. We're going to have to wind this up fairly soon. I did want to just touch on the biggest thing that came out of 249 that we didn't get to really discuss was the Georges St Pierre nominated to the Hall of Fame. You know, I know how much he's meant to me and to, you know, the UFC in general, and obviously Canadian fighters. You know, I don't think we would see girls like Felicia Spencer having an opportunity to add a belt without a guy like Georges St Pierre. And Dana White's always said, you know, how important Canada is, and we've had some of the biggest cards UFC has ever put on. So, you know, he got his due. Obviously, it was going to happen, but really nice. You know, to see that happen on 249.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, talk about an iconic UFC fighter. That guy he was huge. He was huge. Right now, you know, who would be someone like that would probably be someone like McGregor, and total polar opposites of each other, complete personality-wise. One just did it with kind of his nice guy kind of approach. People wanted him to win, for one, because he was exciting, especially earlier on. He was exciting, and he had a super well-rounded game. And then the other guy, McGregor, is just he's entertaining because he's awesome at the trash talk. So with Georges St Pierre, which was great, especially in the earlier days of the UFC, he showed that it wasn't a bunch of goons. And there were other guys as well, but it helped because the UFC was looking at as a blood sport before. And you remember in the early days, they're trying to block it, and then they're trying to ban it, and then have it on barges and stuff out in the ocean and stuff like that. But GSP came at the right time, the nice guy, the polite guy, and just a true champion. And so it's great. And a 2-division champion, which was awesome as well.
Yeah, amazing way to cap his career. And, I'm glad he's sailing off into the sunset, and he'll be able to, train guys and be able to, be that ambassador. And, his humility was always just fantastic. And, it's nice that there aren't just goons in the sport. There's actually really intelligent guys that are just incredible athletes and grow up and become, world-class athletes like he did, and just a world-class human. I've had opportunity to meet him many times and have an opportunity to be around him. And, you can't meet a nicer guy. So, he got his due. I'm so excited for that ceremony and for it to happen. And, another really, really smart move by the UFC, acknowledging some of the guys that have paved the way for the new guys. So, we've come to an end. Unfortunately, we squeezed in some little time. Next time I want to touch on more things and have more time with you, but this has been really great. I'm really, really happy to have you. And thanks so much for breaking down so many of the fight cards that we've seen and the ones that are coming up. Lots to talk about in the coming few weeks. So we'll have you on again soon. And thanks for the time. Anything you'd want to end this on?
No, I just want to say, Darren, this is awesome that you're doing this again, and I had a great time. And let's do it again. So much excitement happening, and I just think that's going to continue for a long, long time. These guys, these fighters, are starting at a younger and younger age, which is going to have so much talent that we're going to see these guys that started at age 5. 15 years ago. Well, now they're showing up.
No kidding. Yeah. Well, mixed martial arts is alive and well. The UFC has paved the way for the sporting world, being able to put on these live events, and guys like GSP are going to be able to really bring some things to the table. So hey man, this has been awesome. Let's do it again. I'll give you a call. I'm gonna send you on your way. Hey, enjoy your evening. We'll talk very, very soon. And thanks again.
All right. Bye, Darren.
Okay. Bye.
Ciao. Talk later.
Yeah, wonderful. That was amazing having Stephane there. Yeah, fantastic. It's so great. As I said a few times on this broadcast, Complete Sports is a forum where we can talk sports. We can get back to living a lot of the same lives that we lived before this pandemic. We can break down sports and talk about sports, which I love to do, and many of you listeners and viewers are love to watch and love to listen and love to talk about it and break it down. I'm going to have some really amazing guests all the time, and guys that have been in the game and can really add an insider's view. He's amazing, always a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Complete Sports would be nothing without guys like him and the viewers. So thank you so much to him for joining in with us today. I'm gonna wrap this up, and please subscribe to the channel. Please find me on the podcast platforms that you utilize, and I'm gonna keep bringing you amazing content. We're gonna today we were talking about mixed martial arts and UFC and a little bit of boxing, but there's lots of other sports to talk about as well. Some of my guests are going to bring their perspective from the other sports out there in the sporting world that they are from or most likely love, UFC 249, 250, and heading into 251. Let's talk to you then. Love you. Bye for now. Take care.